Rebecca, thank you for being with us, of course. Andrew has consistently denied all of these claims, but there has been a deafening silence this week. Why do you think that is?
It's very simple, actually. Andrew and his legal team have been absolutely blindsided by this. They did not expect Virginia Giuffre and her attorney to go down this route of a civil lawsuit. And as a result, there is a lot of behind-the-scenes crisis and trying to work out what to do about it. I mean, it's as my colleague Stephen Wright has explained, it's a very dangerous time for him. Every option available to them is very, very high risk. He could try and ignore it completely, but then of course he risks having a court finding against him in his absence and being branded a sex abuser in America and being subject to a multi-million-dollar claim against him. He could come out fighting. But if he does that, he's got to be prepared to have every dealing he's had with Jeffrey Epstein scrutinised, every aspect of his life opened up to the public, including even his own sexual history. He could, of course, try to get it struck out, but if he fails, he's back to square one. So there's a lot of thinking going on in the Andrew camp at the moment.
Well, Andrew, of course, has arrived at Balmoral with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. I mean, surely they must be talking to the Queen about all of this.
Yes, I mean, it's important to stress that he wasn't summoned up there for crisis talks, as some people have suggested. He was already going up this week on holiday with his family. But obviously, it's inevitable, despite the Queen's dislike of having confrontations, it's inevitable they're going to have to talk about it. It is a front page story around the world. And I know for a fact that senior courtiers and indeed members of his own family, most notably the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Cambridge, are really unhappy at the way this has been handled. And Prince Charles very strongly feels that, much as he loves his brother, as a member of his family, there is no way back for him to public life after this.
And Prince Andrew is known as a very positive person. I mean, how do you think this is affecting him?
I mean, I couldn't tell you how he's thinking this very second, but I have to say, and I know for a fact, is that just even in the last few weeks, his thinking was still very much that he could bounce back from this and return to public life. He was very, very confident of that fact, and whether he's actually realised that reputationally this has been so damaging, there is no appetite for him to do so, I don't know, but that must be, if and when it does, it will be a pretty sobering realisation for him.
Absolutely. And do you think it's going to be particularly sobering for the rest of the royal household as well? I mean, what's the mood like among everyone?
I mean, they're in a very, very tricky position because, of course, it is obviously subject to ongoing legal actions, and of course they have to be very careful about what they say. But there's no doubt that senior royals and their advisors feel this has been reputationally extremely damaging for the monarchy. And regardless of the truth of the case or not, they feel it's been handled very, very badly, and it's been allowed to fester for many, many years, and that has not gone down well at all.
Some brilliant insight there. Thank you very much, Rebecca English, as always. Let's bring in our panel now, all-female panel this week. I'm joined by Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine and the Mail on Sunday's diary editor Charlotte Griffiths. Now, Sarah, the lawyer for Andrew's accuser, said that the Duke cannot hide behind wealth and palace walls. And he's right, isn't he?
Well, I think that Andrew has basically two options here. One is he does hide behind wealth and palace walls, but that will mean that he can never have any form of public life ever again and will just have to skulk around in the shadows. Or he can call her bluff and actually confront these claims, in an open way and answer the accusations against him. And, if it's true that he is not guilty of anything, then, presumably he'll be cleared and he can be vindicated and go back to public life. And I think he does need to sort of either lance the boil, as it were, or just, well, I don't know, become an even bigger boil. I mean, but do you know what I mean? I think those are the two choices that face him. And I think in terms of the royal family, I think there comes a point where the reputation of the royal family is greater than the reputation of any one member of the royal family, and I think they will close ranks, and they will, because they have to protect their brand. You know, they can't have it tainted by this.
No.
You know, and so I think there's a limit to what, and also I thought it was interesting what Charles said, because, you know, the Queen is fantastic and wonderful, but she's very old, and Charles is next in line, and so it may just be that, you know, he's sort of slightly signalling to his brother that he's not going to be quite as forgiving as his mother is currently being.
Well, talking of closing ranks, Charlotte, as Sarah was saying, Prince Charles has said today that there is going to be no way back to public life for Andrew. I mean, do you think that's sort of obvious now?
I think it's about time. And I think what Andrew has done in the last few months is he keeps sneaking back out. So when Philip died, he kind of couldn't wait to speak outside the church. And it was his father, and he had every right to, but it felt, I don't know, it felt to me like he was enjoying that moment. The other thing he keeps doing is riding around on his horses in Windsor, flanked by two grooms, which makes him look important. He's always pictured laughing, and he knows he's getting pictured. And I don't know, they're only little things, but I feel like Charles was saying, come on, this is it. You're not in the picture anymore. And, you know, he's lancing the boil, I think.
Yeah, no, I think Charles is, and I think Charles is sending a clear signal that, you know, I'm not going to be as generous towards you as our mother is. And I think he's right, because Charles has to protect the royal family as an institution, which a lot of people love, and, you know, they don't want it being brought down by one person. But if what Andrew says is true, and that he didn't do any of the things that Victoria, is it Victoria Giff? How do you
Virginia.
say Virginia? How do you say her surname? I can't.
Virginia Roberts Giffra.
Yeah, you said it perfectly.
Giffra. If he didn't do any of the things that she said he did, then why not have your day in court? Why not, you know, why not be scrutinised?
So Charles more in line perhaps with the public view. And Sarah, do you have any sympathy for Andrew? I mean, he has maintained his innocence. He's always said he wants to clear his name, that he will work with authorities. I mean,
the problem with Andrew is that he is not a very attractive individual to the public. We saw when he did that interview with Newsnight, he came across really badly, unfortunately, and I think it was his daughter who advised him to do it, and she obviously loves her father very much, so perhaps she wasn't the best judge of that. So it's difficult, because he doesn't come across as a very nice man. As you say, he does lots of things, sort of showing off, and horses, and look at me, and like, all this sort of. So he doesn't make it any easier for himself. I do have some sympathy for him, because if it's not true, what she says is that he did, then it's wrong that he should be pursued. But he just needs to come out and
lance the boil.
I think he does. I think he just needs to say. I mean, if it's true that he didn't do what she says, then he has nothing to fear, I don't think. And I don't understand why he's hiding.
And you mentioned his daughters, Charlotte. His biggest cheerleaders have often been his immediate family, his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson. I mean, what impact do you think this must be having on the family?
I think it's so hard. Eugenie is with him now in Balmoral, and she's such a normal, down-to-earth girl. And this just must be really hard for her. Beatrice actually is a bit more of a cheerleader, I think, because she sort of advised him around the Newsnight interview. So, yeah, I think she must find it really difficult. She genuinely believes her father is like this perfect sort of individual. I suppose we all think that about our fathers. But
I don't think that about my father at all. But anyway, yes.
But you know, Eugenie is a genuinely normal royal. I mean, she must be completely baffled by this. She's just got a new baby, you know, and she's in Balmoral with her husband, who has also sort of been misbehaving lately. You know, it must be a really stressful time for her. I feel really bad for the girls, actually.
Yes, and Sarah, it was said that while the Queen was busy being monarch, Prince Philip would run the family. So do you think she's really missing his advice at times like these?
I have no idea. I wouldn't know. I mean, that would be sort of presumptuous, I think. But I imagine that she's missing. I mean, you know, there's a big hole, isn't there, in the royal family and in her life. So, I guess
William and Charles are stepping into that hole. They are really grasping this situation as a team together, and backing Granny.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think there's any shortage of people advising her, and I think there are quite some wise heads in there, definitely.
Yeah, she's got a good support team.
Yeah, and I think Charles is very wise about things like this. He's quite a sort of straightforward man. I don't think he's honest. He's uncomplicated. He is sort of slightly what you see on the tin. And I think that he's pretty straight up, you know. He's not, and I think he's probably right when he says what he says about there's no going back for Andrew. He's just being very pragmatic.
Love that. Charles is what you see on the tin.
He really is, you know, he's a kind of intelligent, curious, I think quite fair-minded person. And as I said, I think he just has to protect the royal family. I mean, this is his legacy. This is his, you know, this is his job now, is to keep this thing going and to keep it together and to not let it be tarnished.
And he has to protect his brother from himself
Yeah,
as well, because
exactly.
if Andrew's allowed to just be Andrew, it's a disaster for everybody. So,
I mean, we have seen many. I mean, we saw many years ago in various documentaries. Whenever Andrew pops up, he just behaves
so
appallingly. He's his worst enemy. You know,
Yeah.
he's very pompous. He's very full of himself. He's sort of. I mean, I have no idea what he's like with his family, but you know, his public persona is basically that of the spoiled prince, isn't it? You know, who's not terribly clever, who thinks he's cleverer than he is, who thinks he's more important than he is, and who's always a bit jealous because, you know, Charles gets, you know, is the firstborn. And that's his character, you know, and that was very much his character at the time when he was, you know, supposedly doing all these terrible things that he's meant to have been doing. I mean, those were his sort of quite wild bits, weren't they?
Yeah, that was his sort of above the law phase,
Yes,
as Cressida
exactly.
put it today.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no one is above the law, as Cressida Dick said. And as a senior royal, Prince Andrew, of course, enjoyed 24-hour police protection. So what do those officers know who were with the Duke? Di Davies used to be the man in charge of the Met Police's Royal Protection Squad. I spoke to him a bit earlier. So, Di, from a police point of view, when you're looking after a royal, how much of that information is logged?
Well, it's a good question. And to be honest, as the OCU commander in overall charge, I can't remember ever looking at their logs. But, you know, each journey, particularly overseas, and if there's an event, is documented. There's a log of pre-inquiries, pre-reconnaissance, and anyone who has anything to do with it would be logged, as far as I recall, in each file, or each visit would have a separate file, and relevant information and detail would actually be included there. So any major visit or any visit of any note would be recorded. Now, whether they've kept them 20-odd years, I don't know.
So the Royal Protection Officers at the time who were with Prince Andrew, I mean, their evidence and what they knew and didn't know would really be very important.
Well, I would have thought they're crucial, along with the Foreign and Commonwealth officers, because before any major visit or any visit at all, particularly Prince Andrew, when he was an ambassador for this country, would be logged. The officers would have done a reconnaissance. That would have been recorded. And what they look at is the threat and the locations and all manner of things that would be necessary in the event of something untoward happening, or indeed to ensure that timing is worked out and that anyone who wants to meet or should meet the royal is actually included in that programme.
So the Met Commissioner Cressida Dick has said on LBC Radio that in the past the Met Police hasn't investigated claims, but they're going to review that in light of what's happened. Do you think that that's fair? And is this sort of similar to what would happen if it was another politician or very high-profile public figure like Prince Andrew?
Well, I have to say, I went on Newsnight with Emily a day or two after his interview. And I said at the time, I'm amazed, if you like, why the Met have not investigated. There's a difference between a review and an investigation. What I say quite clearly, unequivocally, is unless you investigate an allegation, you will never find evidence. And I don't know why or who were actually interviewed by this so-called review to determine whether any offences were committed by Prince Andrew or anyone else. And again, there's a whole litany of people who could be interviewed, I would have thought. And in fairness, as a police officer, your duty is to the truth. Your duty is to the courts eventually to give evidence which is pertinent. Now, if nobody actually then goes out and investigates properly any credible witness, and what I'm surprised about is that if I was an innocent individual, I would want anyone who could corroborate the fact, one, I wasn't in London, I wasn't in Tramps, I wasn't, or I was in the pizza parlor or whatever, I would want them to come forward. And what has surprised me is that no one has come forward yet to corroborate anything or any of the versions he has given. Now, I'm not saying he's guilty, and I don't want to try him by media. But all I'm saying as a professional investigator with half a century, both here in this country and some complex cases overseas, then all I'm saying is investigate it properly and have an open investigation. And every time I hear this commissioner or some of the current senior officers, I ask the question, when Ms. Roberts made these allegations to London, and she did through her representatives, what did you do? And who decided, after the so-called review, not once but twice, they wouldn't take it further? Now that lays an open question, as it does with senior politicians. Now David Cameron is being investigated. As Ms. Dick says, no one is above the law, but equally, the law and the investigation process should be applied equally. And I simply don't understand, because I worked with Panorama, if you recall, on this case, and I saw some of the evidence put forward then. I simply don't understand, and I ask again, who investigated it, or who reviewed it? Was it to cut it not once but twice? And again, here we are again, a third review. Well, I wonder.
Di, thank you very much for talking to us today on Palace Confidential.
My pleasure.
Well, let's get a last word from our panel. Do you welcome the Met Police perhaps reviewing things again from their side?
I don't know, part of me thinks it's for show. They have to be seen to be reviewing things, but it's a jurisdiction issue, isn't it? I mean, it took place allegedly in central London, but it's an American civil case. What do you think?
I mean, I suspect, we're talking about something that happened 20 years ago, if it happened. And so I suspect back then, the police would have drawn a veil over anything that a member of the royal family did that was wrong. Do you know what I mean? I think times have changed a lot, and I think that I think it is good that they're reopening the case. I think they might dig up some useful stuff, and if they do, then I mean, I don't think if he did if he is guilty, then I think he should be held responsible for it. But it might be that they dig out some stuff that actually proves that he's not guilty.
They could actually exonerate him.
I think we just have to look into it, and I think anything the Met can do. But I think it will be. I mean, it's not like Cressida Dick can say, "Oh, actually, no, we don't care. We're not going to do anything about it." She's got to do something,
of course.
And because it's such. But it's not a criminal suit that she's launched, is it? It's a
civil.
It's a civil suit, so it's not a criminal investigation.
But equally, Cressida can't find something she didn't find 20 years ago and go, oops, I forgot there was this really big, obvious piece of it. It's actually quite a tricky situation for her to be in.
The thing is, I'm amazed that more people haven't, spoken. There must be lots of security officers, there must be lots of drivers, there must have been lots of people who would have witnessed whatever it is was meant to have happened. And I'm amazed that more haven't come out of the woodwork, because they wouldn't be under... I mean, there would be no reason for them. I'm sure they'd be very happy to sell their stories to various tabloids.
Or Andrew should be rustling them up, saying, hey guys, you and my officers prove that I'm innocent.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. So, it could work in his favour. It's just that the fact that he is so sort of shady about it, just sort of,
not doing him any favours.
He's not helping himself in that respect. I think that he needs to be... I'm hoping he's having I imagine the Queen is having a conversation with him where she's saying, now, come on, what actually happened? I mean, I think if he'd said when the whole thing had started, look, I don't remember this girl. I don't remember having sex with her. I might have had sex with her because back then it was all a bit crazy and I was a single man. But if I did, I had no idea that she was trafficked. If he'd been willing to have a conversation about it, then I think things would have gone a lot better for him. I think it was the fact that he basically said, no, nothing to see here. How dare you accuse me of this? I'm a fine, upstanding member of the royal family, and I'm above all of these sorts of things. That's caused the problem, I think.
Well, as Rebecca said,
his initial response.
They have all been rather blindsided by this latest action. I'm sure we'll be talking about this for many weeks and months ahead.
That's all we have for you on our YouTube show. But to see the rest of this episode, including some more fascinating royal revelations, head to www.mailplus.co.uk/royals or click the link on screen now.